Welcome to season 2 of Rabbit Holes with Aaron, where we haven't made any drastic changes, but we believe we get better with time. So enjoy the wide constellation of guests that I have on this show. Enjoy our conversations. Hopefully, you get some nuggets and you can learn and grow and become a better person. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Rabbit Holes with Aaron. I'm Aaron, and today with me on the podcast, I have Lindsay Friedman. Welcome, Lindsay.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to going down this rabbit hole with you.
Yeah, I hope we get to go down a lot of rabbit holes. So I start with my first question. What's something new and exciting happening for you right now, Lindsay?
So, I think the new exciting thing for me that I'm really looking forward to is I am now onboarding 100 providers onto my company, LT Care Nav. And what I mean by that is we are a tool, a one-stop shop, as you and I had chit-chatted about before, for families to come and plan for long-term care, to understand their caregiving journey. It's very hard. There's a lot of moving pieces. We don't know what to do. We don't know how we're going to pay for it. And we answer all of those questions. And what we've just started doing is now not only do we answer your questions, we put you in touch with the people who can help you execute on whatever we suggest to you. And so that's really new and exciting because obviously it took a while to get the company to where it needed to be. And we are working with some amazing providers. And I'm excited, really excited about that right now.
Well, and it would seem like 100 providers would give a lot more legitimacy to what you do, right? It's not just you saying what you do, but it's a lot of other people on board.
Absolutely. And we have really great providers. I've been really excited about the process. It took a long time because when we say vetted providers, I literally talked to every single one of them and then had follow up conversations because it
Wow.
was important to me for families to know that, like, I truly did this. And so much so that we recently launched a podcast about 5 weeks ago where we started doing podcasts with my providers so you can come in and see how I talk to them, what we talked about, why I picked them. And
Hmm.
it birthed a new podcast, which is also kind of new and exciting because I'm used to being on this side of it instead of your side of it. So I'm getting that whole new picture, and it's been really fun too.
Wow, that does sound fun. Yeah, and I'm thinking about caregiving. I mean, caregiving comes to mind, so I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. Let's just start right off with caregiving. It's like I am kind of on the lower edge of needing a caregiver, and my wife fills in a lot of gaps because of my disability and my retirement from the Marine Corps. So we battled with her getting caregiver support from the VA, and that battle led nowhere. And they end up denying it, which is fine. I am not as in need as a lot of veterans are, so we'll wait until such a time as it becomes a point where we have to make a decision on that. Obviously, I'm still moving around pretty well to get to, the States and to be planning on visiting the world. But yeah, caregiving, the thing I think that most people, if I could talk about it, most people don't realize is that it takes a toll.
Yeah, it really does. It's a really hard job built out of love. And I actually love the term care partner instead of caregiving, which
Ooh.
I use caregiving too because that's like the common term. That's the term we all know. But I really like care partner because especially when you say in like your situation, right? You are able to do a lot. And I ended up having to be a care recipient for 2 years. I had a really terrible injury that led me to needing help too. And as people who are younger, especially who need help, you don't want to think as yourself as like somebody's giving you something all the time, right? It's like because you're really trying to partner to make your life as well as it can be. And you should want to do that for the people you love. but it is challenging. And I think the term caregiving came up because we do feel like we're giving a lot, but if we can kind of reframe that into like partnering with it, because you're doing, and I was doing everything you could possibly do on your own, right? And you just needed a partner to make sure the things that you couldn't were accomplished.
Right. I love that. Well, there's a lot of things I love about that. I love the word reframe. It's a part of my vocabulary on a daily basis, but I also like learning new words. And care partner does seem to fit a lot better because if you wake up from a coma and there's like, oh, you're a caregiver, let's call her in here, you're going to feel like maybe you might feel shame that somebody had to be there and take care of you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially as a man veteran, right? It's like, I can take care of myself. I can do all things. I'm immortal. At least I thought that in my 30s, 20 years ago. Now I know a little bit better, but still, like to me, when I even think of caregiving, to your point, like I feel like a little bit ashamed that somebody has to give that to me. I'm really comfortable with another word called bartering, where you trade equal for equal. Honesty, honest trade, equal for equal. You laughed at that.
Yeah,
I'm
like the
curious.
bartering.
Huh?
No, it's the bartering part. Like, oh, I'm going to barter this with you. Like, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. Uh, no, that's an even more interesting reframe, right? Like to see what you can get from your care partner. Or not get, that's not the right word, but like,
Trade,
yeah,
right.
trade. Like, okay, I need help with like the shower, but I can tell, like, I can play you in a game of cards or something. Like I can do something for you. What can I do to give back to you? And it's a really interesting way to look at it. I told you I was a care recipient too. So I had when I had my daughter, I had this injury that left me so I couldn't use my right leg. I was
Mm,
agonizing pain. I couldn't step down. I couldn't drive. I had all the issues that came with this nerve that was damaged. And I was not my best self. I was not the happiest I'd ever been, like to say the least. But I was really like, don't help me. I don't want help. And then I'd realize like I can't reach my feet to get my socks on. And then it's like, okay, I do need that sock on, right? Like, but I don't even know if I had anything to give of myself. Like, so like, hey, you put my sock on, that's awesome. But like, I'm super grumpy and I don't want to do anything for you.
yeah. Well, and oh my gosh, this is the biggest rabbit hole I've ever seen before, maybe, and that's the bartering rabbit hole. I haven't even talked about bartering before. I have so many good stories. It's such a recent learning experience for me, that maybe it applies more. So let's go into this rabbit hole real quick. I want to tell you a story because I started beekeeping, as I told you
Yeah.
earlier, and now I have this honey. Excuse me. And I have a lot of it. I have, at first, right away, I had 14 pints of honey. And, and you can sell it, easily. It's local, especially local honey in my local area. I could sell it for prices range. It's a pint for $10 to $25, just depending on the season and the demand and all those normal factors. But the coolness of bartering is that I had a friend that raises his own cows. I'm in Texas, and he raises his own cows, and he has them processed for their meat, and he just has freezers and freezers of it. And so I was like, what would you trade me for? Well, actually, he told me, he said, I'll trade you a couple ribeyes and a few pounds of hamburger and a dozen eggs for a pint of your honey. And, it took a minute. I added up what that would cost at the grocery store, and I was like, I think that's about $80 worth of meat for me. So you might think, well, you ended up really good on that barter. He ended up really good too because he wanted honey. He didn't have any bees, and his wife uses honey in a lot of cooking and in her tea and all this stuff. And now it's pretty much a done deal. If I get honey, I give him a pint. He gives me some meat. sometimes a few pounds of hamburger. He always gives me eggs. And locally, whenever he gets a dozen eggs, he just hands me a box. I meet him every Thursday morning for coffee. But he is an old hand at bartering, and so he brought me in gently and slowly with the offer for honey, and knowing that I'm going to taste the beef from his cows that he raised, and he finishes the way he finishes them, and he doesn't, use any insecticides or anything like that. He's not exactly organic. That's another topic. But like he taught me that like you can do this thing where something that is, I have a lot of it and you have a lot of that, and we can do a fair trade. And like, is this okay with you? Yes. Well, is this okay with you? And I'm like, that's a lot of meat. Yes, And so we made that trade, and it was fair for both people, and it was honest, and it was open. And, but before that, and maybe it's the same for you, maybe it's the same for everybody, for my listeners, we hear the word bartering and we maybe think maybe something claws its way out of our memory banks from like 8th grade history class or something. Like, oh, the way they used to do it. Man, that way must have been terrible, because now we're in capitalist society, and everything, you get everything so quickly. But I don't know. I've had to reflect on that. What do you think about that?
So I used to barter a lot because I had a skill set that used to be valuable. I was an editor, I was a writer.
Mm,
So editing used to be a skill that a lot of people needed. It turns out ChatGPT is taking over my bartering capabilities. So I was a big barter. I like face stuff, right? Like this is gonna be super girly and weird. Like facials and that kind of stuff. I'm also super duper cheap, so it's not something that like I love to spend money on. And so there was this practitioner who needed help writing all of her stuff for like marketing. And she had thrown it out to me once that like if you write my stuff, I'll do your like little face treatments, your little skin stuff. And to me, that was the greatest thing in the entire world. And when she discovered ChatGPT, my face treatments dried a little bit.
no.
But I was big into bartering. Like I was like, I'm pretty good at this. I can write quickly, and then AI is taken over my capabilities of bartering. So that to me was like a skill I had that was easy to give. Like I had
Yeah.
it was easy. I like doing it. You have something I want. Let's like trade that, because it used to be something people would pay for was writing. And so I've lost my bartering capability.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you lost it, but I'm excited and happy to hear that you had it,
I
you
did.
know?
I loved it.
And as I go a little bit further in this rabbit hole, so in further understanding of my rancher friend, he was telling me he leases hundreds of acres around him. But when he told me what he pays for those leases, like for 10 of the acres, he just simply goes and mows the guy's lawn once a month. For another 20 acres over here, he keeps it mowed, and he can keep the hay. And it's like these barters that he has are a genius level. I don't know where he figured it out, but I'm learning a lot from him. But the thing interested me the most about bartering with honey was like, if I trade you my honey for that, there's no way they can tax that.
That is true. I think if we went back to a system of bartering, I think it would put us all on much more of an equal playing field. We are not, because we have a capitalistic kind of society, right? Everything costs too much. And then what ends up happening is the people who don't have the capital don't get the service or the goods they need. And to kind of tie it back to senior care, right? It's really expensive. Home care is expensive. And if you don't have the actual tangible money to do that, then you're not getting what you need. Living in a
Mm,
society where we barter, right? Everybody has something useful to provide. And I think, I mean, I just kind of said I don't anymore, but maybe I do if we like dug deep. But I tell my husband often that if there was a zombie apocalypse, I would be like totally useless. Like my skill sets, like I wouldn't have much to barter. I like wouldn't have much to survive with. So a little side note. But in the grand scheme of things, most people have something to offer somebody else, or at least something that they would need. And if we lived in that kind of society, it would be so much more fair, because if I needed home care, somebody would come and help and I would be able to do something in return, right? But
Right.
it seems so much more simple and fair, but that's not where we're living. So it's only the people who have the dollar that are getting everything they want, need, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and we don't worry about meeting people's needs unless it's to make money, and then we try and pile up enough money so that we'll be able to take care of, caregiving situations or serious accidents or buying a home one day or moving, whatever. You know all the retirement plans that people have. But there's an interesting rabbit hole that popped up for me in the midst of all of this talk about bartering. There's something I learned recently from a buddy who's been to jail. I have been to jail, but I was on the guard side of the rails or the bars. So I know kind of some things that happen on that side, but I didn't know this. And he said there's like a bartering system in jail. Well, I've seen movies where they trade things for cigarettes, but it's called your hustle. Have you heard of this?
I have. I've actually heard like ramen noodles is like a thing or the newspaper. Like, yeah, like everyone has a little hustle of what they trade out.
Well, and that is one aspect of it for sure. And if you got money in the commissary, then you're king for a day, right? You can order all this stuff, give it to that guy. But the real hustles are like, okay, so this is one thing. People take all the thread out of their pillowcase and then they make things out of that thread. They knit it together as gifts for people to mail home to their family. This is one thing. I could have a hustle there. I could write poetry. I've got 2 books of published poetry. I could write poetry for somebody to see them to send to their girlfriend or their wife, and that might get me their commissary. Or I could write love letters or letters to their children. I'm trained as a counselor. I have a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling, which is why I know a little bit more about caregiving than maybe other people, my peers, at this stage in life. But yeah, there's so many different things, and you get your hustle, and then people leave you alone. No, that's the guy that writes poetry. He's protected or whatever, right? So whatever your hustle is, and some of them are religious, like there's probably a lay leader or somebody that leads a prayer every night. So I got this scoop. So there's like this barter system that is really functioning of people getting stuff based on their skills, and you might not think you have a skill in something. Well, you probably find one quick, but you probably do. And some people, they'll take a pen apart and they'll do tattoos. And if you're an artist and you can draw, you got the world's your oyster inside the jail. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a bad side to it too. That's why it's jail or prison.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's functioning and it has its own system that I feel works well. And from what I've been told from people who I know who've been there, like there's a level of respect if you stay in your own lane, if you mind your P's and Q's, if you're respectful, you give respect. There's sort of just like that is given back in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you
So
have any rabbit holes so far that you would like to go back to? No pressure. I got plenty more written down here.
you've got more written down. So I am curious about your living in the mobile home and going places. Like, see, I can ask you 100 questions. Like, do you just wake up one morning and you're like, today we'll go? Or do you like plan it out? And how long do you stay? And do you go by the
Okay.
weather? Like, I would go by the weather.
Okay. Well, maybe one or two questions at a time, and those were really good ones. I'll start with those. So, as I said, I've always been nomadic, and the Marine Corps slowed me down a little bit because they made me stay somewhere for 3 years. Obviously, it was way before I had a choice. We were moving every couple years, throughout my childhood. But then, okay, yeah, the quick version. So then my kids grew up. They were like 18. My son was going to welding school to be a welder. My daughter wanted to move closer to her mom's family on the East Coast, and I'm in Texas. And I was like, okay. And they moved out, and I was like, well, I'm renting because I just got out of the Marine Corps, retired. I didn't have any property anywhere. So I was renting a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. And I looked around and I was like, man, this is a lot to clean for just myself, a lot to keep up with. And I said, what are my other options? I looked at apartments and actually they were more expensive than the house I was living in and renting. And I was like, dang, like what? And I looked around and I had a friend who was going to college with me, another veteran, and he was living in an RV. And he said, "Yeah, you can come check it out. I'll give you a tour. I'll tell you how it works and everything. You can see if that's something." I was like, "Okay, let me come check it out." RV, it was a bumper pool, but it had. And okay, let's go back a little bit. The Marine Corps on deployments, I might be sleeping in a tent with 30 other people, and we're all on cots. There's no bathrooms. It's just men laying on beds of the higher ranks and no space. If I wanted privacy, I'd need to find a porta-john that's kind of out of the way to have a little privacy and read a book for a minute or whatever, or listen to my own self, my own breathing, my own thoughts, and regain composure. I mean, it's a war zone. You don't want to be too relaxed, but you got to have some little place for yourself. And you didn't have any other place. It was like, these are my bags. This is my cot. There's no furniture. There's no desk. There's no chair. So it was pretty austere. So when the first time I saw an RV, I was like, you got your own kitchen, bathroom, refrigerator, bed, TV. I was like, this is awesome. And so I moved into an RV at that point. And that would have been 2018. And then fast forward a few years, couple years, and I met Jill, my wife. We've been married 5 years now. And, I thought my days of traveling would be over. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to settle down, put down roots somewhere. Jill came over, checked out the RV where we were dating, and she was like, I could live here. This looks good. And then she moved in and after we got married, and then she was working a job and I was retired from the Marine Corps as I am. I was doing pottery stuff back then. And she said, what if we went on the road? I think, and she did the budget. She's looking at the budget on her little computer. She's like, I think we could afford to just go on the road without my job. RV parks are pretty inexpensive. And I said, let's do it. I'm open to it. And so in 2022, we hit the road in January and we were going to hit the America in the corners. We went to the southeast first, then we went to the northwest, then we hit the southwest, and we just recently in this last year, 2025, we hit the northwest states. Yeah, so that's what went behind it, was she kept requesting it. And I kept saying yes. And I'm the one that fixes everything. And she drives, and I drive most of the time, but she drives. And yeah, we're nothing. It's nothing glamorous. We're not going to all the tourist destinations. We can't afford that. If the gas price go up $1, we're stuck in Upper Peninsula, Michigan for 2 weeks in the forest with, well, just enough money to eat. So there's adventure, both sides adventure. Does that answer your question so far?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think being able to see everything um and the way you're doing it, I hate to fly. Like super duper hate to fly. Like I would
Hmm.
yeah. So because of that, like when people are like, "Oh, like going to conferences and stuff," they actually give me like extreme sense of anxiety because you can't just like take a drive like to like Colorado to go to a conference and then drive back, right? So this would be an ideal way for me to see the world because I'm cool in a car. Literally, like the idea of an airplane, just like it weighs on me. Like at the end of May, I have to get on a flight, and I'm still like I'm anxious about it to today.
Hmm.
I don't know what. And I don't know what it is. It's like the whole experience. Like to be able to see the whole world. Like I would love to be able, I know you can't see the whole world, but that would be a great way for me to experience things when I have the
Yeah.
opportunity from like a vehicle. And there's so many different things you don't get to see like when you are on the road.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you don't feel comfortable to fly, but I'm with you that the road is so much more. There's so much more there. There's so much more. People ask me a lot, and I'm going to answer the questions you didn't ask. People ask me a lot, like, what's my favorite place? And me and Jill both. I mean, that's pretty much the question we get hit with whenever we go anywhere around people we know. And we've had a lot of times answering it and thinking about it. And we used to say the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and that's still on the list. I mean, we've been there, but that's on the what things I like most list. But what popped to the top for me was that space in between when you're driving and Google Maps says no turns for 410 miles. Take a right in 410 miles. And like my guard drops down, my consciousness opens up, and me and Jill, we might take, a CBD gummy within safe requirements, small dose, and have the best conversation for 6 hours straight. Those are my favorite times. The in between times when you just get to relax and you kind of aren't anywhere. And I guess that could be a scary thing about being in the sky. Grounded, but on the ground on four tires, going slow with a 40-foot trailer, that's my heaven. I can listen to books, I can listen to music. I'll have songs pop up in the void of that space that I haven't listened to in 30 years. Now, I wonder if that's on Spotify. You know,
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
I love sitting and looking out the window. Like that, especially when I was younger. So my parents and I, when I was very young, we actually did 2 summers in a row. We did like big trips across country. So I've seen most of the country. Um, and I remember I could just sit and look out the window and like absorb the outside and what it's like. And I've got a super overactive imagination, probably plays into some of the fears with the flying. But I could like I loved looking out the window and seeing new places, and then all of a sudden you're gonna see like a little trailer, then you're like 200 miles since you've seen anything, and somebody's living there, and you're like, what would it be like to live there? And I would create stories in my head about what it would be like for me to live there and what my day would look like, and that would get me like the next 100 miles, and then so I really can see that like
Wow.
those moments in between. And the reason I didn't ask you where your favorite place was, I do have a reason, and I know why I didn't ask you that. Because how do you pick one? What does favorite mean? Because favorite means like that's the one you would always want, right? And so I think favorite's a weird thing. Here's a rabbit hole. Saying this is my favorite means you're like picking one. And I don't necessarily think you can pick one, right? Like, what was your favorite place for weather, maybe? Or like, where was the favorite place you had pizza? But just like one favorite, I think that'd be really hard. And I wouldn't want to put you on the spot like that.
Well, thank you. I mean, yeah, I'm prepared for the spot. You don't put me on the spot. And that's actually, it's great. And I loved what all the things you had to say. I'm struggling because I want to go down all the rabbit holes at once, but I'm thinking, like, and when you choose just one favorite, let's go to that rabbit hole. Like, you reject all others, People don't think about it that way. Yeah. Well, and if I were going to say, back when I used to say that the Upper Peninsula of Michigan was my favorite, it was because we expected to have the worst time there. Stranded in the forest, no other humans, 30-minute drive away from any town, broke, right? We expect them, well, at least we can afford to stay in the forest for the last 2 weeks of the month. All the things, your world comes crashing down on you, and you're like, is this a good plan? Did we make it a good decision? Should we just go home now? Rattling around in our brains and in our conversation. And then you sit outside, and it almost brings an emotional reaction for me because you sit outside in the trees and you see the wind blow through these trees and you hear it and you hear yourself breathe and you realize how priceless and precious it is when you expected it to be the worst part of your journey. And so the unexpected surprise of how amazing it is, and we did so much work there in that quiet space, such as being triggered by something my spouse says, then finding the memories attached to, reconciling it within myself, and never being triggered there again. Multiply that times 20, between the two of us, of amount that we came away with from there. We think there's something magical happening up there. And we can't wait to get back, although I don't know what we'll turn into. Because we turned into even healthier, more mature people the last time we visited. So, so there you go. I kept it real.
No, and that's amazing. And I would like to almost like reframe it to you that it might not have actually been Michigan. It might have just been where you were in that moment with your wife. So I remember my husband and I moved into the house we were in almost 2 years ago. We're going on 2 years. It was my father-in-law's house, so it was more of a strategic move. I loved my last house. We were so happy. And I remember thinking like, okay, I don't know if I want to move because I'm really happy here. Like I was worried that like a move was going to change my level of happiness or change the experiences I was having. And then we moved and I realized that I was just as happy and just as fulfilled. And as
Hmm.
much as I was worried that that wasn't going to transfer, what I said to him recently was, I don't think it matters where I live as
Yeah.
long as I live with you. You are what home is. And my dogs and my daughter, but this is home. This is, it's not where I am, it's not what I'm sitting on, it's you. And I think maybe that's what you had the moment when you take away the clutter of the world or of the noise of the people around you. Maybe what you just saw was that you were able to connect with your wife, and that's what the moment was. And maybe that moment can happen anywhere that you're free from the external noise. But I love that you loved Michigan. But I think maybe that reframe of like, you can have that moment anywhere if you take away the distractions and focus on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was something magical about that space and that location on the planet was that our cell phones didn't work. We're out of range. Streaming, it worked a little bit sometimes with Starlink through the trees. But yeah, we were forced to kind of look at the relationship and work on ourselves in that situation. And I don't know why we as humans are so afraid of that, right? We're afraid of vulnerability. We're afraid of looking down those deep dark places inside of us. Maybe we're just afraid of how powerful we are when we get balance inside of ourselves, when we reconcile with ourselves and accept ourselves. Then I don't know. It could be, but I like that idea, and I don't know what you do when you take it back to the original phrase. I'm not reframing it. Maybe I'm old framing it. I don't know. Home is where the heart is. I mean, we've all heard that. It's kind of cheesy. We've heard it so much and cliche, but I really found it to be perfectly true. And it sounds like you have too. That
Yeah.
like my heart is with you. This is my home, and we have taken it to extremes. And we're going to take it to even greater extremes of taking just her and me and a backpack across the planet and drop us off there and see if that is home too. And see if that can be home too. And every place we go along the way can be home too. And if we can, now we've learned to make that moment happen in a noisy life, We shut the door and we sit in here and we work it out. And yeah. Well, thank you for the reframing. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think the noise gives distractions, and I think that's why a lot of people like the noise or the doom scrolling or everything, right? It pulls us away from the things that could be scary, the things that can make you feel a lot, because sometimes feeling a lot doesn't feel good, right? I think if you can be able to reach those places in the noise, that's amazing. That's a skill set. If you can find those places of purity when there's still distractions and connection, like to be able to connect in those moments is great. That's a
Yeah.
skill set.
Yeah. Now I need to find something to barter it for. Well, I guess we are bartering it. Me to my wife. I bring my very best. She brings her very best, and it's a good trade, which is something. Well, I like to just randomly run down new rabbit holes, and so I wrote one down like negotiation because I've heard some stuff about that recently, and I read a book on it. What book was that? Never Split the Difference was the name of the book. I can't remember the author, but AI will automatically populate it in my remarks anyway. But yeah, so never split the difference in negotiation, and then talking and listening to like Jordan Peterson and how he says like a marriage is a place of negotiation. And like if you're not willing to negotiate for yourself, then you might as well quit. And I think of the some of the stronger negotiations which I'm not going to share, that me and my wife have had, where either one of us can stand up and say, you know what, this is something I really, really need. We need to talk about it. We need to figure it out. And it's kind of a way that we work through it. And I think it's pretty commonplace for a healthy and successful marriage. And it sounds like you guys are rocking one of those as well. And like, so negotiation has been an interesting journey because let me take you back in time with Aaron for a second and answer all the questions that you haven't asked me yet, which this is fine. This is good. I can summarize better. It's like I came into a relationship just somehow expecting my wife to know exactly what I needed: food, water, intimacy, space, whatever. We all have our needs. We all have things that we have a lot of things we expect coming into a marriage, and then we have things we like somehow primarily need, and we got to sort between them all and figure them out. But I came in just thinking, you agreed to be my wife. You already agreed to provide me with the things I needed when I needed them. And women probably expect similar things, although I can only speak from the guy side. After day one, maybe, or hour one, or maybe minute one, we realize that that's not going to happen. And we have to start. And, I have been married a few times, but only ever once at a time. So that's good, I guess. But it's the Marine Corps life. What can I say? But in that experience, I learned very quickly that I needed to ask more questions going in. And then I needed to keep asking questions. But I haven't given you a chance to talk, so you can go anywhere you want. You can talk about negotiation, or you could ask me a question about anything. Let's go. What do you
No.
got?
So have you and your wife talked about like communication? I mean, I think women tend to be like, I need you to communicate with me, right? It's like a that I will tell you as a woman who's going to tell you like that is key. And sometimes I don't know why men find it so hard sometimes to communicate. Like my husband used to tell me like years ago, like I just don't want to share my feelings. And I'm like, but you do share your feelings because you're
Yeah,
being super duper grumpy right now.
exactly. Yeah, we have a certain sphere of feelings we're perfectly okay sharing with you, like angry, grumpy. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it would be much easier for me prior to Grumpy Land for you to have said to me, like, hi, this thing is not making me feel accepted, loved, needed, right? Like, this is something that we need to talk about this thing. So, because you not talking about it with me and then being grumpy later, like, grumpy speaks louder than the words you were going to say, and we could have avoided grumpy and had a great conversation. And so my husband has gotten to a place where he's very good. And sometimes when he like says stuff, this is something I've learned about myself, is like when he says something about being wrong or not needed, my first reaction is, how can I fix it? What can I do? And he's like, no, I'm just trying to tell you because you want me to tell you. And I was like, no. So I said, I go, this is something I know I need to work on. Sometimes I need you to start the conversation with, I'm just going to share with you, you don't have to fix anything because you get annoyed when I try to fix it. And so, like, that's good communication too. I'm just telling you, there's nothing you can do. Please just listen.
Well, and you're giving me the secrets to why home is where your heart is for you and why that's working because of communication. And I absolutely agree with you. And I would be the worst fool if I did not but I will explain to you that guy language, I'm kind of new to it. I was sheltered. I was like, I wouldn't say coddled. There wasn't enough food and water to go around, but I was kind of sheltered in our own Christian universe, kind of. It was almost like a 50s Fallout shelter or something. We were kind of cut off. We moved so much that we didn't really integrate. I didn't find out all these social cues. I didn't find out how guys don't talk to each other. Their communication style, which absolutely does not involve talking until like the 99th thing to try, right? It's like they're about to actually die from mortal wounds, me being included, until we're finally able to say, this hurts, or whatever. The most, in the most, this doesn't hurt way we can possibly say it. And I've been a student of this weird phenomenon And I was in the Marine Corps, and and it was always weird to me how guys are, and I was surrounded by millions of them. I'm a guy, but I don't know the secret language. But luckily, I have my friend who is a rancher, cattle rancher, who has 20 years more practice than me, and he'll listen, 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 grunt once, listen, 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 and wow, thanks for saying so much, and he really does because now I know what to listen for. But guys are really, yeah, there's a lot of stoic stuff. And younger guys, don't get me started. I'm talking about guys my age or maybe older. I'm like a tiptoe, a little toe in the pond, kind of like I am bewildered, but I'm not talking. And that usually works, right? With other guys who are like, he really is a good guy because he didn't say anything, right? I could anyway, I've told Jill long stories in the Marine Corps about me getting chewed out up one side, down the other, and I'm just standing there, position of attention, allowing no emotion to hit my face. While on the inside, I'm like, but I'm quiet and I got my bearing. And so they're like, he can get promoted. So anyway, what do you think about that? The guy language.
So I think that is guy language. You just spoke guy language, except you said real words about what people are thinking. Like, I think guy language is like,
Yeah,
instead of being really truthful and honest about, like, guys would like to say, this makes me uncomfortable. This makes me sad. So you were doing guy language. You by putting on your stoic face. That is,
exactly.
I think we're
Well, yeah, it passed for guy language. I didn't know what I was doing, right? I realize now. But it's say as few words as possible. It's never repeat yourself. It's answering and I don't know, but I mean, in my life, let's look over my whole life. Do you still love me? Like, you are surrounded by things I bought in a home that I'm paying for, watching TV that I paid for everything. I've always had women that were my housewife, so they didn't go out to work. If they did an equal share. To me, I gave them full keys to the kingdom. Here's all my money. Take good care of it, and I'm going to go back to work for 16 hours a day and maybe deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan. So I was communicative in that way, I guess, but at the same time, it's like redundant. It's like, do I care about you? I mean, I just said I love you like 5 days ago. I know it sounds ridiculous and I'm kind of making fun of it. I'm new to it and I have utmost respect for it. Like among guys, I have found out that like I can be quiet and if I say one word the whole time, like my points go up, I think, a little bit. My like guy cred. So it's an interesting phenomenon that I'm only just discovering and I'm probably sharing everybody's secrets. Well, they're already out there on TikTok. What do you think?
So I have two things I think to get to both your points. One, when you say you think you're putting on guy cred and you're not really, I think that's all men. Now I'm not a man and I don't want to speak for men and I don't want to seem like that girl, but I think that's not, and it's not just all men, it's all people. Like I think we're all unsure of ourselves and whatever that face we put on is the face we put on. So you putting on that this is what I think I'm supposed to be doing. It's not just men. We all take that role of this is what I'm supposed to be doing and this is the face I'm putting on.
Okay.
One thing for what you said about that. And then the second is so all of the amazing things you did for your wives, what all the different the ladies that you loved in your life, sometimes love looks different to different people, right? We all have different, like that love language thing, those five languages of love or what they are. What might look like love from you, like your love language may be support, supply, gifts, all of that. So to you, that's like, I'm showing I love you every day. While your partner's like, that's not what I need. That's not my love language. And I'm mutilating this book. But my love language is spending time and holding hands. And if you're working so much to provide your love language, then you're missing out on her love language is like, don't work so much, don't give me stuff, just be here with me and cuddle. That's
Right.
where the disconnect comes in. So I think having those conversations or at least realizing what your different love languages are, that makes a difference. Like knowing what you need to feel loved and what somebody else needs to feel loved, if you can complement those things, that's when those questions kind of don't exist.
Absolutely. I think that book was by Gary Smalley.
Is that who
Love
did that?
languages. Yeah.
It's been 100 years since I've read it.
It's been that long for me too. I mean, I when I was in my 20s, I knew I'd be getting married one day, so I read all these books to get ready. That's the kind
Yeah.
of guy I kind of was. And I think we're also talking about really an emotional vocabulary as well. And we as guys generally can need to develop more of an emotional vocabulary. And as I shared before, I was introduced to emotional words in the counseling program I was a part of. And I love the nuance of, I feel slightly numb right now, or I feel a little underwhelmed or overstimulated, or you got all these different words, or I don't know how I feel. I feel kind of, what do you call it? Gosh, I can't think of the word. It eludes me. It's a new one in our emotional vocabulary around here. Disconnected, disassociated. There we go. Disassociated. Yeah. So I know what you're talking about. What do you think?
No, I think being able to say this is how I feel is super powerful. My daughter, who has a chronic illness and anxiety, I don't know which feeds what. I don't know if her illness feeds her anxiety or whatever. So we worked really hard with her when she was little, because when you have a little kid who has anxiety and doesn't feel good, behavioral issues can pop up, right? Because it's hard to say, this is making me frustrated, this is making me sad. So we did a lot of work with professionals to help her learn to say these words and to explain to her that your behaviors are your feelings. Like, you are allowed to say, I'm angry, I am sad, right? And we can express some of those feelings, as long as, like, we've worked really hard with her. Like, when I'm angry, we don't take that out into bad behavior. And when you can articulate it clearly and you're at that point, the unkind bad behaviors that you see with, like, pent up frustrations and anger, like, tend to cease when you have control over that, is what I have found in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. They break it down to where people would say, I am angry. And it's like, are you the elemental force of anger? No, I'm not. I feel angry, and then you get to separate yourself from the feeling. And when you separate yourself, well, it loses some power, but also allows you to express it to someone else who can then, I mean, I know this is old school for you, but for my listeners, this may be something new and fascinating. But it allows you to distance yourself from the feeling, allow somebody else to hear it and understand, and maybe move to give you some care.
Absolutely.
Or,
I
yeah,
think a lot of what we need to make ourselves feel better, feel less lonely, feel happier, feel more loved, feel more engaged, is starting with, this is how I feel, this is what I need. How do you, especially if you're in a relationship, how do I just ask for what I need? What, like, going back to our bartering, if I ask you what I need, what do you need from me in return to be a good partner, a care partner, a good spouse, a good mom, a good dad? What do you need? What can I do? And what can you do in return to help the situation thrive?
absolutely. You come to the table with what you got, open to trade. All of us are that way. And I want to pull out something that is one of the themes that I've talked about in this listening, and how important listening is in that process. I mean, we see it every day. Is it the same thing if I have my phone up in my face and you share how you're feeling, or is the same thing if my phone's down and on do not disturb to hear what you're feeling? What do you think?
Oh, that's huge. There's nothing, and my husband doesn't do this because he hates the phone. He would never have a phone. He like doesn't have a computer. He doesn't have an email, which at times can be challenging.
Yeah,
He's really good about it. But my daughter, who's 15, right? She'll like try to have a conversation with me and then look down at the phone at the same time, and I'll be like, this is not going to go anywhere. Like your distraction, and I guess this goes back to our distraction conversations. Don't even have the conversation with your phone not on airplane mode. Just put it on airplane mode, have the conversation. It's okay. Whatever's on that phone will be there when you're done. So if you don't do that, whatever you're going to chat about, it's not going to feel as meaningful or as purposeful as you paying 100% attention.
Absolutely. And we miss out on the miracle that is another human being. Honey, well, you can eat honey and it tastes good. It probably benefits your allergies or something. It's crazy. It's its miracle of its own, but nothing on this planet compares to other human beings. Like it's almost magical how our bodies function and we're able to move around and accomplish so many things and go to every corner of the planet from Antarctica to like tropical heat to desert to wherever we want to go. That's what I am fascinated with is the person on the other side, like learning who you are and getting to talk with you a little bit. It's a magical world you live in where you're married to the person that you love. That's where your home is. You're noticing that it doesn't matter where you go, that your home is there with you. What else? I mean, that gets rid of almost every fear. You got fear of flying. Okay, that's fine. You can have that. No problem. But still, it's like there's another person there waiting to interact with. You're going to get new ideas, which are really the real currency of life, in my opinion. But before I talk too long, what do you think?
No, I think it is all about connection. And I'm going to say something that is going to send us down a rabbit hole that we probably don't have time for. But in my mind, like the fear of death comes really from people, right? It's not, for me, the biggest fear of the unknown of dying is not being with my person. Like that to me, when I think about it, and I'm like, I'm okay with whatever comes next as long as I get to be with you next. Like if you and I are
Mm,
together next with our family and the people I love, I'm cool with next. Like whatever the next adventure is, it's that unknown of do I not get to be with you? And so
yeah.
I think like even the next step that we all take, or what the biggest fear we all have of like what happens next, I think it really is not because we're living in the greatest universe of all time, right? There's so much to be sad about in our like in the world, right? Like it's not like this is the greatest place, it's not heaven. But that fear of dying is comes back to that person that you love, your family, your connection, and not wanting to lose that.
Mm, the fear of dying. Oh yeah, Death and Dying. Yeah, I read that book, Death and Dying. I remember I texted you, I emailed you that, yeah, I think about dying. I think about dying a lot. Well, now we're going to have a different conversation about suicide. No, it's not in a negative way, but in a positive way. And I just talked to another person to talk about being on a podcast that was saying that she helps people and coaches people and gets them ready for death and like does something with their centers their soul or something, and she has like a whole facility where people come to her to be comforted about being ready to die. And I guess that's what maybe the hospice system might be. I haven't looked into the hospice system.
She was a death doula.
A death what?
A death doula? Is that what her role? So there's death doulas who really to play that role. It's kind of like a birth doula where they like bring you into the world and help you prepare like for birthing. There's death
Hmm.
doulas that kind of help you bring you out. There is I'm gonna forget the name of the book. It's a really beautiful book. It was written by one of the first death doulas who kind of created it, but I'm not going to remember the name. But I worked for hospice for a long time, and there's a lot of beautiful things that can happen,
Yeah.
and it is the thing that makes me feel better is that there's always this thing at the end, or a lot of people have this visioning where they see the people who've passed before them coming back to them. And so, if you're interested in that, you should read about visioning and end of life kind of hospice stuff. It's really a beautiful organization. And so, that always kind of makes me feel like, okay, as long as I get to see you, as long as I get to be back with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be home there too, whatever's after
Yeah.
death, you know. Yeah, and actually, and I appreciate you realizing we're getting close to what I said to be the time. But man, if we get in a good rabbit hole, it's whenever you and me are ready to end it. Well, I guess that fits. We're talking about death, but
The
in a
end.
rabbit hole episode. Sorry, a little bit of pun there, but yeah, actually, I'm pretty comfortable with death. I'm pretty ready to die. I feel like I've experienced a lot, and like I'm not gonna be like, I need 5 more minutes of life. I'll be like, okay, let's see what's next. And I've noticed that when you turn that corner, so to speak, of not being afraid of death anymore, that like no marketing campaign works on you ever again. Because that's like the main way they get you to buy stuff. You need to be happy before you die, or you need to push off death as long as you can, or or fearless, or pretending to be fearless in commercials, and it's just like all of it. And I'm like, I'm not afraid of death anymore. You have no control over me anymore. To marketing at least, I guess, in some ways. What do you think about that?
I think yes, I think it's more like experience, but I think a lot of marketing plays a lot deeper. It's not even just about, it's like make the most of your time here, maybe.
Yeah,
We can go down such rabbit holes. I've got lots of thoughts on marketing, but I do think it's like make the most of your time while it's here because there's nothing else to happen. And that's what I don't want there to be nothing. I just want there to be something. And I've obviously don't know what that something is.
yeah, nobody does. Nobody. Well, you got near death experiences. I just did a recording for a guy the other day that he saw the pearly gates and his dad coming out to see him. It says it's not his time, and then he got zapped back to life. Yeah, I mean, but you got a random, the further you read into that, the more stories you get, the more random it seems, or maybe uniquely interpreted. What do so,
Yeah.
but you have a lot of rabbit holes that direction.
Yeah, I can get started on stuff. But
Okay, well, I'll go
yeah,
ahead and wrap up then. But man, I guess we'll have to bring you back for another. I
love
mean,
that.
unless you get wore out of being a guest. I mean, I could. You aren't right now, so yeah, I definitely have you back as a guest again.
I would love to come back. I love doing this. I love meeting new people. I love engaging. And so I appreciate you having me. And then next time you feel like somebody, I guess you have to see if anyone wants to watch me first. I guess they're going to always want to watch you. But if they do and you want me back, I'll be here.
And I don't determine my guests based on random numbers of people that are distracted anyway. I determine by my enjoyment and how magical the conversation is. That are my main factors to determine who is my guest again.
Well,
So that's how I can say confidently, without looking at any numbers, that I would love to have you back and you'll be hearing from me. So thank you so much.
thank you so much. I look forward to coming back.
And thank you to all the listeners that are paying attention, listening, and just trying to be better people, trying to get a handle on life or trying to get a handle on what comes next. I hope you enjoyed all the things we talked about. And I hope you enjoyed the interesting guest that we had on here tonight, Lindsay Friedman.